We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
We are consumed by an era of spin over substance. We're told one thing, and yet our eyes and other senses tell us different. And if we stop dancing to the state-sponsored tune being played, well, then we're radicals. But who are the real radicals? And what is the overarching narrative we're being expected to swallow, hook, line, and sinker? Inflation, that's been trending steeply upwards. That's apparently the fault of Putin's price hike, so they allege, while conveniently ignoring the previous 12 months of rocketing inflation. America is more respected on the world stage than ever, they say, as spokespeople and friendly politicos are forced to explain the president's meaning and insist that he didn't say what you thought he said. Add into this a woke agenda that threatens to derail the very existence of America as a constitutional republic, and it seems that truth has indeed become a rare animal. Welcome to Liberty Nation Radio here on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's show, we talk cultural Marxism, America's sinking reputation under Biden, sky-high inflation, and a whole lot more. I want to say thank you to our listeners out in Hagerstown, Maryland on WARK 1490 AM and 98.9 FM. Thank you for being here. And remember, this show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. If it seems like institution after institution is falling to the woke ideology, you're probably not far wrong. Whether arts and entertainment, education and healthcare, nothing seems to escape the touch of the far left. But how does it happen, and what ultimately are the solutions? We're lucky to be joined by a longtime host of this here Liberty Nation radio show and senior political analyst, Mr. Tim Donner, to help talk about it. Welcome back to the show, Tim.
Thanks, Mark. Good to be here as always.
So let's start by putting the cards on the table. When we say woke, are we really saying cultural Marxism?
The answer is yes. It's a resounding yes, even though it's not been presented as that. It's been presented as just kind of, liberalism extended into the 21st century. But in fact, it intends to overturn the entire culture of the United States. It wants to confuse boys and girls, to mix up the genders. Facebook offers 72 different gender identities. This is a product of cultural evolution, Marxism, call it what you want. The idea is to threaten the family structure. And you look at the hypocrisy in the group, which I think we all knew was going to be unmasked, but now it has been. Patrisse Cullors, the founder of Black Lives Matter, who sent chills up and down our spines when she described herself as a trained Marxist, is now unmasked as having bought a mansion worth millions of dollars. The $90 million that Black Lives Matter attracted in 2020 in the wake of the George Floyd affair. They're under investigation for that. But
it really does seem that they're following the traditional Marxist theology then, as take the money for yourselves. Yeah.
Destroy the culture. If you destroy the culture, the politics will follow indeed. That's classic Marxism. And we see that in ways big and small, even as I wrote about on LibertyNation.com, at small repertory theaters, classic institutions in local communities. They've moved in with their agenda. They've taken classic works of art by people like Thornton Wilder and perverted it to advance their own gender-based ideology.
Well, yeah, it's funny that it's actually in the root of the radicals, I guess, from the 60s and 70s. Now, how is it that they've gone from what was really just a movement within academia, I guess, to having such pervasive power today?
Well, I think it's the persistence. The left is good at playing the long game. The long game where they realize they need to make inroads here, inroads there. They're willing to be patient. And the reason they are is because government is their God. They think, breathe, eat, pray, government. right? They eat, pray, live government, to put it in terms of a popular book. So they're thinking about these things all the time, how to advance the revolution. And while we thought, it's interesting, Mark, because we thought there was a reaction to the 60s, which we called the me generation of the 70s, and then all the wild wealth of the 80s. But, you know, everything comes around again. And if you've lived long enough, like I have, to see the 60s and the 2020s, then you see that it's, as the biblical statement in Ecclesiastes says, there's
nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun.
Absolutely. I mean, when we hear the politicians, they talk about equity rather than equality, which, you know, is a word that was strictly reserved for the business culture up until even a decade ago. Is this really just, I guess, what people would call a dog whistle to those who know the code? So when they say we're pushing equity, fellow Marxists, they realize, oh, so this is Marxism, and they garner the support in that way. Is that how it works?
What's in a word? A lot. A lot's in a word. Think about the word people. The People's Republic of China. That kind of rhetoric rules people. And the difference, you know, the People's Republic of China is not for the people at all, but it was presented as that, right? Equity is deliberately designed to confuse people because they see equity and they just assume, oh, they mean equality. No, they don't. Equality means equal opportunity. Equity means equal outcomes, and equal outcomes require radical social engineering. So equity means there needs to be a guarantee that a certain number of transgenders, Black people, Latinx, right? that all these, there needs to be a formula where there's guarantees of outcomes. This is the way the left does it. So equity is a very dangerous concept, but it's one that's being embraced by those who have surrendered to the Black Lives Matter fueled cultural Marxist movement. They're willing to go along with that because they think, oh, equity, that just means everybody has an equal shot. No, it means that there's an enforcement of equal outcomes. That's a huge difference.
Let's dig down that rabbit hole a little further, Tim. So with equity being equal outcomes for all, that can only happen when the state is in complete control. And if you have the state in complete control, doesn't that mean the end of democracy, or in the case of America, a constitutional republic?
Bingo. That's the whole intent. See, these people in the true cultural Marxist movement who made inroads all through the entertainment industry, all through corporate America. I mean, the degree to which Fortune 500 companies surrendered to Black Lives Matter in the summer of 2020 is frightening. They bent the knee. They gave in to the demands because, again, you talk about words, Black Lives Matter. Sounds innocent, right? And when it first really came to our attention in 2020, it was something that, well, of course, we're going to get behind Black Lives Matter because Black lives do matter. So again, people being ruled by rhetoric. Sorry if I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but I think it's an extremely important point to recognize how the left uses language to control the masses.
Tim Donner, thank you ever so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Loved it. Thanks, Mark.
Later on in the show, we talk Joe Biden and constitutional conundrums. But in just a moment, we'll be breaking down the figures on the record high inflation impacting America. Don't touch that dial. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
We're doing it for real, really real. Liberty Nation.
And Jeff Charles, contributor for LibertyNation.com.
I think we're starting to make an impact. Liberty style, fighting for freedom.
Maybe tracking poll sponsored by Liberty Nation for Thursday.
Mentioned by Dan Bongino, Rasmussen, Jordan Peterson, and
I
others.
can do it again if you want me to.
Cited in Mark Levin's American Marxism.
I think we're starting to make a really big impact. Get noticed. We're doing it. Rock on. I'm gone.